Hello.
And we're live. Hello, everyone.
Q&A number 11.
This is one of your favorite numbers, isn't
It
it?
is my favorite number. Yep.
Why is it your favorite number?
Because it's the nicest sounding word.
Ah,
1, 2, 3, 11.
11. Elensory. 11.
Elvin. I love that sound.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone else pick their favorite number by the way the number sounds? I also was born on December 11th. And my maiden name has 11 letters in my last name.
And 1 plus 1.
And there were 11 people in my family growing up. 9 kids.
Oh, wow.
2 pairs.
That's a
Okay,
good
so I have
reason.
other reasons.
Cool. Just
What's your favorite number? Put it in the comments.
Hi, this is Buddy the Elf. What's your favorite number? Okay, we're just
We're warming up.
warming up because people are joining us gradually here. All right, so do we have any announcements?
I was gonna sing a song, but I won't.
And yes, that song. Okay, so no announcements that I know of. We did have one question that we wanted to cover, and if you have any questions, feel free, if you come on live, just to pop them in the comments and we will address them now. And with that, we can go to the first question.
Mhm.
Yeah?
Yep.
All right, okay. So we've had the question, and also there have been people who are trying to figure out with stage 3. Well, okay, I'll turn the question to you.
Okay.
All right. So right now we're in stage 2, which is the translation stage, which means we're putting it into our own words. But what if I'm the kind of person who learns by doing? What if that's how I like to translate, is by hands-on doing something with it? I want to get out of theory and I want to do some practical application. What about that?
Okay. All right. So let's address that and just say that the system works best when you get the whole picture and when you get all the theory. So just keep that in the back of your mind and say, even if you are going to jump to application, and I'll give you some examples of how you can do that.
Okay.
Even if you are going to do that, keep doing the theory. So
Okay,
side by
okay.
side. So translating it, putting it into your own words, coming up with your own story or analogy, kind of look at the essence of each day's text and look at it and say, if I just simplified this down to one core idea, what would the idea be? And then are there other ideas surrounding that idea? And just try to get it as clear in your mind as you can. And then any of your own personal experience, things like that. So as much as you can, continue doing the theory because it's so important, and the concepts build on each other. So taking all of the concepts, they will come together and all be kind of part of one thing. And so to see how they come together, the first one building on the second one, building on the third one, and then how do they all work together, those first 3, and then the fourth one, and how do they all work together? And so that's still theory, right? Okay, so now you're at application.
Okay,
So what do you want to do?
Yes.
So we're in this 22 contexts, up in 22 contexts. That's what we've been doing
That's where
this
we're at
last
this week. Yep.
And so one of the ways that you could do application is you could pick one of those or your top 3 or your own contexts and say, what are my top 3 that I want to spend my energy, time, and resources on? What are my top 3? And then what you can do is you can take those things that you want to do that have actionable steps and consider how today's post, the text for the day, could help you with that particular thing. So
Okay.
yeah, so let's say it's your business and you're like, okay, so my 3 include business. One of them is business. And so then you could look at today's text and translate it into your own words and then say, if I used this idea, this core idea of just the little nugget for today and said, how could I think about my business today in that, with that lens? So that's one way.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're saying you use that as kind of a filter. Whatever concepts we're covering, you compare it to the filter of, and it's kind of like your why when we talked about figuring out what your why is. Why are you going through this? What is it that you hope by going through the book group what result are you looking for? What change in yourself? What is it that is currently either a source of pain or an inspiration, something you aspire towards? Any of those. And you could use that as the filter Stacey's describing and say, all right, how is this little piece, we're only covering a few minutes every day, right?
Yes.
So how is this little bit today, looking at the filter from your why, if that's your business or whatever it is, what could you take and apply? So if you're a hands-on person, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
For everyone who wants to just stay in the cycle, how we're doing it, the plan is to get through all of the translation stage so that you've translated all of the concepts for the guide. We do not normally begin any application until we hit the hero stage, which we will do in this group. When we come to it, it's all part of this group. We're not going to hit some point and say, okay, now behind the paywall you will get all of the... No, this is all part of the group. Just in case you're wondering.
Yeah, because we really talked up stage 2. Now we're in stage 2.
Yes.
Now we're talking about stage 3. So you might be thinking, oh, stage 3.
That's where it hits.
That's when I have to pay.
No.
No.
We're doing everything together in this group.
Yeah.
Okay.
We want to give you all of the pieces, all of the tools.
Yes.
A complete system that you can do without any extra cost.
And that's why we're also putting the text every day in both YouTube and in the Facebook group. Of course, you could go and get the book, and then you'd have the full reference all in one place. If you, for whatever reason, don't have the resources to get the book, that's why we're putting the text, so that everyone has the opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. So for those who do want to do application, if that's your way to translate things, if Stacey's way, she likes to go through questions, she likes to try simplifying and then expanding, she has different ways. Whatever your method, if it includes some kind of application, Stacey's giving an idea now of one way you could apply, is to take that why. If you haven't thought of it yet, here's your call to action. Think of your why. At least one thing.
Yeah.
One thing you hope to get out of being part of this book group, okay? And then each day, look at the concepts we talk about and filter it through your why and say, how could this help with my one thing? That's one way you could apply. Okay, so that's one thing.
Do you want to think of another one?
Oh, let's see. Another way they could do an application, like a hands-on. Oh, okay, so think of the 80-20 principle where it talks about one small thing. Stacey had the example of if you learned the first 1,000 words of a language, the most common words, the most common words in English, if you learn just the first most common 1,000, you can understand 88% of spoken English, something like that. So think about in your life, what is one thing that causes you the most headache, the most problem, the most whatever? And then you could use, so you talked about, something kind of inspirational. You could take and figure out what is the one thing that's causing you the most trouble right now, that if you could get rid of it would be a huge relief. And you could try each day with the filter of that. So I kind of just took the flip side of what you did and said, okay, how could what I'm learning here help me with this? So you could use that. You could use something that's coming up, something in this week.
Yeah.
I have this, what is something important happening this week? And then you could use a time factor of what's important right now.
Yeah.
As a filter.
That's a good one too. And one that I always talk about in my Facebook Lives is if there is a certain circumstance that's reoccurring that you approach thinking that it's not fun or it's not desirable, then going into it, having prepared in advance, thinking about it and say, okay, there's this thing that normally I go into and I feel less than optimal inside. How could I approach it from an up perspective? And then brainstorm and think about things how you can change your way of looking at it. At first you're going to just be changing your perspective about it, but then eventually you'll change your lens and then it will just be that way.
So to explain the difference, you just use two different terms.
Okay,
What's the difference between changing your perspective and changing your lens?
Okay, so perspective is something you do consciously and in the moment. It's something you do when you want to look at something in a different light. So let's say I'm looking at the book, I'm looking at the cover, I turn it to the side, I changed my perspective. I changed the way I looked at something, and it's always very conscious, and it does require you to kind of stop and think. It's not instinctive, it's very, okay, now, and usually if you're going to be changing your perspective on purpose, it's because there's something you want to change, there's something lacking, something you know, when at first you don't see what you want to see, examine the lens. So this is the perspective part, is the, what am I looking at? What am I seeing that I don't want to see? And it's all very conscious, and if you just keep, so a lot of self-help and a positive, like positivity gurus they kind of stop there. They're just like, this is what you always need to do for the rest of your life, is just keep changing your perspective. And it's a lot of internal work because it's very conscious. And sometimes we aren't in our conscious, let's look at this differently state of mind. We're kind of in a reactive, this just happened and I freaked out, and I have no conscious thought right now. It's all reactive. So that's my view. That's what I describe as perspective. Do you want to add anything to that?
Maybe some other words that mean change of perspective.
Okay, yeah.
Reframing is another way to say it.
That's a
If
good
you're
one.
just changing. Also, one way you can know it's a perspective is when you're trying to understand it from another person's point of view.
Perfect, yeah.
Because if it's your lens, Stacey's described that as your reality. It's how you view reality. So it's not an outside perspective. It's not a different way to look at it. It's the way things seem to be. This is the way things are. So if you're changing your lens, what you're changing is how you experience reality, really.
And one of the cool differences is that perspective, you can change your perspective and go back to your other perspective. When you change your lens, you can't really go back to the way it was before. I mean, you could, but when you do shift your lens, it changes, changes everything.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I
So
know what you're
how do
saying.
I describe that?
Yeah,
It's not like you're locked into it.
Yeah, no, of course you could change your lens a different way. You could say, I don't like this new lens, I'm going
Yeah.
to shift to the previous lens, right?
You could change it.
But what I know what you're saying. You're
Okay, help
saying
Help me.
when you've changed your lens and you're experiencing your reality a different way, when you look forward or backward, you're now looking through the new lens, so the past is now different too.
Yes.
It's not just, I'm trying to reframe this present moment. You've actually changed the way you perceive what's happened in the past and how you perceive the future that's coming as well. So once it becomes an instinctive shift, then whichever direction you look at reality, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see, what was if relationships are one of your applications that we're not doing as a group yet, this is for people who really struggle to think of things in theory, they want something hands-on. We're speaking to you specifically because if it takes a hands-on approach for you to translate it, then that's the approach for you. If a relationship is where you're trying to apply these things, then there are so many interesting perspectives and lenses and things that have to do with relationships.
And that was one of our contexts that we mentioned this last week.
Yes, it was. Yes. And here's another question for you. Do you think we're ready to move to the next question? Okay. So here's another question. And this is something we'll be coming to in the coming weeks. But let's say, for whatever reason, they started out in the book group and they kind of thought, hey, there might be something in this group that could help me, or that maybe I could share with someone else. And then for whatever reason, they just kind of stopped following, or they stopped doing, or maybe they're hearing about translating, and they think it's a good idea, but they're just not doing it. Could you maybe talk through a little bit about what might be going on? What could they do? Is there something that would help them if they see value? How can they actually get the value out of it and not sit on the outside looking in?
Yeah, so one thing is to engage with the ideas and post comments, and then we can reach out to you, and you'll have other members of the group responding to you. And so it really that's one way.
Yeah, that's an easy one. I like that.
Yeah.
Even if you say, hey, this is me.
Yeah.
I wanted to do something in here. I've done nothing. This is me. That's
No.
that. Yeah.
Or I want to be a part of I want to just comment on today's post or today's live,
Okay.
or you know, like just be like, oh, I'm interested in this, or I have a question about this, or even say, like, if you notice one of the concepts is similar to a concept that you're familiar with, that's a really good one. It's a powerful one, because then you could say it's similar to this, but how is it different? Or this is how I see it. It's the same or different. So.
What if they're having trouble even listening to the daily thing? What if they're days behind?
Yeah. So
what could be happening there, and what could they do?
Yeah, so one of the things that is interesting, so we're going to be talking about this more in the next few weeks, and that is talking about pain points, and we addressed it in the introduction, and then we're going to be explaining it in the next few weeks, but I could give you kind of a preview of it and see that if you use any kind of a motivation that is less, like, I would say negative motivation, but the negative motivation is going to be different for each person. But if whenever you think about doing more in the book group or reading more or something like that, and you don't feel energized and excited and raring to go, if that's not how you're feeling, then it's possible you're using pain points to motivate yourself. And whenever you use those pain points, it gets you to the first few steps, it gets you going at the beginning, but then you tend to avoid whatever the task is, because you start associating the task with the pain. Instead of seeing it as separate, it's like that task is painful. And when I say pain, it can be just the tiniest bit of pain that make you just kind of avoid it.
Stacy really helped me understand what was going on here in a recent conversation, because you might not feel like there's some outside pain pushing you to do something. And she said, she was explaining, it's not necessarily an outside unless you've assigned someone else to push you. It's how you're approaching the task by pushing yourself. And if you haven't done the task, if you feel like the response to, I haven't done it, and maybe you even feel a little bit bad for not doing it, if your response is to feel like you need to push yourself harder, that's what she's describing as pain. When you say push yourself harder, and it depends on you, because you might view it differently.
Yeah.
When you push yourself harder, is that I'm going to do this? Or is it I really should be doing this, I feel bad I'm not doing it, that kind of.
Yeah.
What kind of push is it?
Yeah, and if it's anything less than the, yes, I want to do this, or even just, okay, I'm going to do this kind of motivation, then it's likely you're using pain and the pain points. And another term for it is the internal bully.
Yes, yes, right, which you've been doing on your live.
Yeah, my Facebook live.
A little plug for Stacy's Facebook page. She does a live every day. And
4 days a week.
Oh, sorry, yeah, thank you. 4 days a week. 4 days a week she does
Thursday.
a live, and she is doing different series. So she did 12 good reasons to feel bad.
Yeah.
That you could be making yourself feel bad for what you think is a good reason, but you don't need to.
Yes.
So those are fun. And then you did 12
placebos and the
placebo series, like things that we can blame for making us feel good, but it's just something that you use as a boost, or something that like the sugar pill that makes you feel better even though it's not real medicine.
Yeah, but you can actually get physical healing because you believe that it will deliver the results.
And we use things like that in our happiness and in our motivation and other areas.
Yeah, so think about, just really quick, if you think about anything that you think makes you feel a certain way, that's you giving the power over to the thing. And so it's kind of like a placebo, because you believe that thing can make you feel a certain way. So.
And after that, she did a relationship series where she talked about something called toxic debt in relationships, 12 different kinds, and how to avoid them.
Yes. That was pretty amazing.
They were pretty deep. If you're here for relationships, if you're seeing us on the YouTube channel, then you need to find Stacy's Facebook page to see the lives, unless you plan on sharing those on YouTube at some point. Right now, they're only available on her Facebook page.
But
So-
put in the comments
There we go.
that you want them to be put
She will-
available,
yeah.
made available.
And we can make those available. So that there are those 3 series, and then right now she's doing, what are you doing right now? Which series? The internal bully.
Yes,
Yes, and 12 ways to
12 reasons why you keep using it.
uh-huh. And so if you're doing that, if you find yourself wanting to be a part of this, wanting to be more engaged, wanting to participate more so you get more out of this, and you're not, realize that you're probably using a traditional approach, and it's the approach that's preventing you. The approach is actually the problem.
Yeah.
And so we're teaching a different approach.
Yes.
That's why we're here, because whatever results people have been wanting in life and getting in life are based on what the traditional approaches they're using. And if they're not what you want in life, this is why Stacy's doing this, to share a different approach, because she has gone from wanting things and struggling and getting mixed results and
Yeah, like for example, I had this notebook that I would put my to-do lists in, and I would keep the notebooks throughout the years. And if you went back, like in a 10-year span prior to this transformation, you could say that I was setting the exact same goals at the beginning of that 10-year span that I was at the end, like almost no change.
it's like New Year's resolutions,
Yeah.
where people start into the gym and it goes a few days, and then the next year they're setting the same thing.
Same goal. That was me. That was me completely until I started, and it was about 9 years ago that I really started. And then even I would say 5 years ago, a drastic change. And then like from there 5 years ago to now is like yeah,
she's like a rocket.
yeah. This is awesome.
So one more tip, I think, for that question, and then if you had anything else, so percolate on that for a second. One of the tips that a member of our team, we were talking about these concepts and how to help people who are used to the traditional, used to using some kind of bully to try to get themselves to do things. One of the things that you can do is to decide that you're going to do something, and then not revisit the decision until another point. So for example, if you wanted to get up and work out in the morning at 7 a.m., if you set the alarm for 7 a.m., but then when the alarm goes off, you revisit the decision to try to decide now, it's going to be harder. And actually that feeling of, oh, do I really want to get up, is much harder than the alarm goes off, I set the alarm, I get up, I do it, and then when you go to set the alarm the next night, do I really want to get up at 7 or the week or something like that, right? So
Redeciding at every point you think about
it's
it.
so much harder than if you just say, I don't want to have to think about if I'm going to do it or not. I'm just going to set. So for this week, as an example, you could just say at a certain time, or if you do it weekly, some people like to review these weekly. You just make the decision, and then you plan it, like if you put it in a calendar, if it's something that you actually need a calendar, or I know you like to do things timed with other events. Like Stacy, if she has a book she's reading, she'll read it when she sits down to eat, or you could either associate it with events, or you could associate it with a time frame or something like that, where you can decide and then just let it happen.
Yeah.
You don't have to make yourself do it. You just let it happen at that time when that event happens.
Yeah, and I could suggest that you do that with these videos if you got
That's
behind.
exactly where I was going. That's where I was going, yeah.
Yeah, like you could just set up a time during the day and you just say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch, 1 or 2 videos. If you're behind, 2 would be great, and then catch up, and then you're not revisiting that, and whenever you revisit it, that's where the bully has power.
Yeah. And it could be when you're driving, you don't have to watch us, you could just listen, like plug it in and listen.
Yeah.
I think for the translation, you have to have a point where you can sit down and look at the text, because we're not reading the whole text. But if you're at the preview stage, if you're still in stage 1, just plug it in when you're doing something else, when you're exercising, when you're driving, when you're doing some kind of menial task or whatever. Just plug it in and get that overview. But make it be easy on yourself. Don't push yourself too hard. Just make it easy. Let yourself do it. And start with that.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, cool. So thanks for joining us today. And we will do the same thing next week. If you have any questions before next week, drop them in any of the comments throughout the week. There's also the playground that Stacy posts, where you can post anything that you think is valuable for the group. It's in the Facebook group. We don't have quite the equivalent in the YouTube channel, but feel free to drop comments and things in the YouTube channel of anything you think would be valuable for the group, or watchers or commenters. And we're here to support and help each other on this journey.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yes, Stacy is our example because she has moved down the bridge and made some amazing changes in her life that she wants to share that ability with you.
I really do. I want to share it with as many people as I can for the rest of my life.
And if you've experienced some kind of transformations, changes, improvements in your life, please share with the group what you did, how you did it, and how that could apply to or be different or the same as what Stacy is sharing with us.
Yep.
Okay. All right. See you guys next week, and tune in tomorrow for the next daily.
Yes.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.